Everybody, welcome to episode 155 of Fight Chat Friday. So today's episode is going to be about how to use your counters more effectively, particularly against sidekick. So we're going to give you 4 moments, which is a good opportunity for you to get your timing correct to have a perfect counter against a sidekick.
Excellent. So I suppose we'll start with the on the way in the development of the kick. So on its way up is a great time if your distance and your timing and your anticipation is in a good place. And here our first little clip is Andrei Lee from Russia, and you can see that as the kick is lifting, he's already closing the distance, with a little added safety of making a movement to the blind side as well to get him out of the line of the kick. And by initiating the movement before the leg gets up into the most dangerous position with the foot between his opponent and himself, he's already making contact.
Yeah, so you got to time this correctly. As the big toe lifts off the ground, you need to go. And the same with Camille here with the Superman punch, which was a very effective shot around 2009, 2010. It was just as somebody was lifting the side kick, you got that distance correct. You can just jump in, take their space, and get a nice clear score on the board. But again, you got to have the distance correct before this. Just like this one, we have Thomas Fogarty here with what we call the clash and go, or what he calls the ride along himself. So he lifts his leg above the other person's leg on the rise. So as he rises, he clashes it, and then that sets him up to get the hand. So nice little option there that we don't see too often. So a little bit of a nuance from him and a nice score if you can get it.
Yeah, I mean the distance does have to be closer in order to have your leg above your opponent, or in fact just to beat the leg on the rise. If you're too far away, it's very, very difficult to get yourself into a scoring position. Here we've a nice one from Vitaly where there's a little bit of pushing in and out and changing of distance, and as his opponent has tried to shorten the distance to match before lifting his leg, Vitaly has just attacked directly in, so basically beating the leg on the rise. So nice way to do it. And we came across, Richie actually sent me a good explanation, a good definition of a way of looking at rhythm, which was basically just you'll see rhythm in the movements that make you closer or further away from your opponent. So it's always going to be around that change of distance to your opponent, and it is an interesting way of looking at it. And you can see there between, I think, Thomas and Vitaly, just that ability to make the opponent a bit closer or initiate their kick a bit closer than they were actually wanting to, with that change of rhythm, lets them beat the leg on the rise.
Yeah, so that brings us to the next one then, which is a good opportunity for you to find it. Now, this one is a bit trickier. You need to be real. You need to be real accurate. Let's say with this, so we have the back leg dolio as one option. Here we see Vitaly Solovey against, I think it's Anis Trikwi coming under that leg. Now, a lot of time it looks like it's a low shot, but it's just to highlight the example of what we're looking for here. The leg is already in the air, and then you're coming under it. So it's not on the rise, the leg is already there. And how this works is you're changing in terms of opposites. So because it's a direct shot, you're coming around, and then we have a nice option here with the high section dolio right after as well. So it's as the leg is in the air, you're using either a spinning technique, like we see here as well from Ivan, who comes around Adam's leg while it's in the air. So the leg is already up here and right now, and then he spins around it. So this only works because it's a circular shot against a straight line shot.
Yeah, but it's an interesting one because it very often happens now that we see when the side kick is lifted, there's a lot of respect given to the shot. Like if it's already in the air, people will back off and move. But having a direct counter, having something that you can take against the side kick when it's in the air is a huge add, because it takes away that kind of safety or that feeling of safety from the opponent as well. It makes them consider whether or not they want to carry that front leg or leave it in the air, because that then becomes a liability.
I think it's very important as well for you to be aware not to. Ideally, you kind of want to be using your legs to counter a leg that's in the air,
Yeah.
not your hands, because if you go forward with your hands, you're going to probably run into that side kick. So I think the legs is a better option, particularly that back leg dolio if you're on that particular stance. And if you're on the reverse stance, you're going to be using a circular back kick, not a back kick against punches where it's like knees tucked, heel high, more of a circular, almost like a 180 side kick essentially.
Yeah, or even a bent leg reverse turning kick. It's a
Yeah.
strange shot, but yeah. The next thing, of course, in the sequence of things is that after the person kicks, the leg drops, and there's a moment as it's getting close to the floor where it's very hard to change direction to pick the leg back up again. So if you can do something in that moment, and your distance and timing are good, it's very difficult for your opponent to do anything much about it.
Yeah, so here in blue we see Vitaly as a young kid in 2015, but he shifts back and puts all his weight on that back leg, which allows him, you see on his right leg now, he shifts first. So there's a shift, and all his weight's on that leg, which allows him to easily lift his front leg. And then it's usually the axe kick or the Dolly Chagi on the over the shoulder blind side. So they're
Yeah.
usually the options that you'll have there, or even a side kick if you're quite sharp as well. You can actually time it correctly to go as a drop, you lift your own side kick to the hip.
Yeah, and I mean, this is different. Very often we see people, retreating away from a technique to then try to go to hands, and that has its own risk because, if the leg doesn't drop as you expect it to, you basically eat a side kick in the ribs, so it's not nice.
Yeah, you got to be watching out for that. Like this one as well. Obviously, we're looking here at Yazin trying to get the hands after his kick. So if you can read that as well and understand what's going on and why they're using their side kick, you can almost kind of set that up to time the drop between the two shots.
Yeah, I do like this one
Releases
particularly.
as
Just
well.
sorry, Richie. I was just going to say I like this one particularly because the foot hasn't hit the floor when Kiki pulls the trigger and throws a shot, and that's really important because that's the ideal timing. If you can hit it as the foot is about to drop, the opponent doesn't have any opportunity to react to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that kind of leads us to the last one, I think, which is the last option that you're going to have,
Yeah.
which is the beats between two kicks. So usually it's very common for people to throw multiple side kicks at once. So they might throw one, drop, and go again. And here is an opportunity for you to kind of get yourself in a good position with timing and distance in particular to pick out that little gap between them to pick a right moment for you to counter. So some people will actually go when there's nothing happening in the gap, or it will allow them to kind of reset to either pick one of the other three we've already looked at for the second kick. But the idea here, there's usually two kicks. Here we have a kick and another kick, and in that gap between the two is where you see it even easier in slow motion. So as they lift, boom. That's that little bit of a timing advantage for you to fit your own shot in there when they're going to be going between the first one and the second one.
And it does give you a chance to kind of gauge what the person's show is like. So, what is the look of the kick as it's coming up? And if it looks the same, both times, it tells you an awful lot about what you're going to have to do. And you process that information very, very, very quickly. So it's almost like taking, one to have a look at it and the second one to fire.
Yeah. So obviously what we're looking at there is every part of a side kick can be countered, but it's choosing the right thing at the right time. And it's the timing of each one. When do you need to recognize what that side kick is doing? What does it look like? What is the chamber? What is the distance? And as soon as you can recognize those, then you can put the right technique in place or the right solution for countering a side kick.
Absolutely. And you may well have a preference. So if you like to spar a little closer to your opponent, if you prefer going to hands, maybe beating the leg on the way up on the rise is a thing for you. If you prefer to work the edge of the ring and you like to counter with the legs, maybe kicking the leg while it's in the air or dealing with the leg on the drop is a better choice for you. So it does depend. So you've got to find what style suits you, and of course, as always, be a little bit adaptable.
Yeah, so play around with these, see what works for you. As Adrian said, try to fit it into your game. And it's definitely going to be something that you're going to need against high level people. You need to be able to deal with their sidekick, counter it, and take it away from them.
Super. Well, that's us for this week. Hope to see you in the next one. Best luck from us. Bye bye.
Bye bye.